All right, there we go. Hello everyone, how's it going? Team here, and this is BxJS Weekly, bringing you all the best JavaScript news of the week in a podcast form. I know it hasn't exactly been weekly for the past couple of weeks, and apologies for that, but my head has been a bit killing me a tiny bit with migraines and everything. Not exactly sure if it's the weather we had, which is like super weird, or it's the stress getting to me or something, but anyway. I'm finally feeling a lot better than I was before, so here we are with episode 133. And hello, Emmanuel, welcome to the stream. All right, so we do have quite a lot of really cool things today here. And, as usual, the first section is getting started. We got 4 very nice articles here today, starting with the first one from the Prisma team, titled Building a Modern Backend with TypeScript, Postgres, and Prisma. So this one is actually a really good tutorial on building the Prisma-backed backend, right? And one thing I did not like about Prisma when we had a stream with it was that it basically forced you to first create the tables, and then from those tables you essentially built the schema, which felt really weird, right? In this tutorial, they actually walk you through how to do it the other way around, how to first define the models and then generate the tables from your Prisma models, which in my opinion works a lot better, and I'm still not sure why this was not in the official documentation initially, right? I don't know, maybe it is there now, but this just feels like a way smoother way of doing things. But anyway, other than that, it's a really solid tutorial that covers pretty much everything you need to know about Prisma, TypeScript, Postgres, how do you model everything, how do you set up the backend, how do you test your routes, how do you test your Prisma models, how do you add authentication, authorization, and then finally it even touches on stuff like continuous integration and deployment. So if you are curious about all of that, again, it's a really big series, so there's like 4 very large articles, and it will take you probably like couple of hours to get through all of them, but they are really good. So if you are curious about all of that, I would highly recommend reading through them. It is actually a really well written set of articles. And again, I think they should have included the whole thing with creating tables from models in the official documentation from the start. Should revisit it probably at some point and see if they change that, but anyway. Continuing, next thing we got here is ECMAScript proposal method.item for arrays, typed arrays, and strings. So this one is, I haven't actually heard about this proposal until the latest announcement from TC39, which basically advanced this proposal to stage 3, which means we're going to be getting it shipped in most of the engines really soon. And it's a really good one. Like it finally allows you to get the last item of array with just saying array.item -1 instead of, doing the whole length -1 or whatever. And it seems very convenient. Like there's a whole ton of nuance to it, obviously. So it's not just there to get the last item of array, obviously, but it's a really good one. If you are curious about it, do check out this really nice write-up by Dr. Axel Rauschmeier. Again, his stuff is generally very good. So yes, quite highly recommended. Hey man on the run, hello from Germany to you. Welcome to the stream. All right, continuing, we got building complex animations with React and Framer motion. So this is a really nice tutorial that shows how to build essentially a Mac-like dock thingy, I guess, or animations for it anyway, using the Framer motion framework along with React. And yeah, that's essentially what the thing does. There's some explanation of the math that goes into modeling the animations like this, and then the code itself, so sort of walk through line by line basically. Really straightforward, but very nice if you are thinking into getting animation into animations and you wanted to learn how to properly do that. Do check this one out, it's a really good tutorial. Okay, and the last thing we got here today is again the animations related. It's an article from Smashing Magazine titled Animating React Components with GreenSock, and is basically a tutorial for connecting GreenSock animation platform with React, which, works actually really well. Like it's not as complex as you might think. Then again, most of the things that work with JavaScript are relatively easy to connect to React with hooks, and well, GSAP is not an exception here, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's like a bunch of tools here, a bunch of things covered, including easing, timelines, complex animations. GSAP is a really powerful library. If you never heard about it, I think it's been around since the early days of Adobe Flash, because it's like one of the first versions they built was for the ActionScript, and I even remember using it at some point in my ActionScript code. It's a very nice lib and a very powerful one with a lot of features, and well, now we can use it in JavaScript, and a lot of like it still has the same amount of features basically. You can do some really nice things with it. And my cat is just meowing really loudly in the background. I'm not sure you can hear that. But anyway, if you are curious about GSAP and what kind of crazy things you can do with it and how do you actually connect it with React, then do check this article out. There's like a ton of examples, really good explanations of how all of that works. And yeah, it's pretty good. All right, that is it for the getting started section. Now we are coming to the articles in news. We got 5 of them here today, starting with the first one from the Mozilla security team, I guess I would call it. It's titled Inspecting Just-in-Time Compiled JavaScript, and it basically deep dives into the how the JIT engine in Firefox specifically handles the JavaScript. And what I found interesting is that, first of all, there's like a ton of really cool references here to other related articles, resources, and so on and so forth. Like, it will probably take you a day to go through all of that, but it's absolutely fascinating. If you have time, I would recommend going through all of them. And the interesting thing is that they basically start by saying, okay, so you can obviously learn about JIT engine by just going into the source code, but the JavaScript source code for Firefox is like 500,000 lines, and it's going to take you years to go through all of that. So we're going to assume that the JIT engine is a black box, and we're just going to reverse engineer it, essentially, which I thought was a very interesting approach to doing that. So essentially they compile the JS shell thing that Firefox has, and then run some code with it, and then see how the engine handles it. And like if you ever dived into the JavaScript engines, you know that there's basically a bunch of different optimizations that are being applied to your code, and this illustrates very nicely. So stuff like, if you run a function 100 times, it's just going to hit the baseline compiler, which is like the very basic one. If you go into the 1,000 executions, it will trigger the Ion compiler, which is the Firefox more optimized, I guess, interpreter, not the compiler first. And then if it goes above the 100,000 times, it's going to hit the Ion compilation, and this is when the JIT will kick in, essentially. And there is so much detail in here, is just insane. When you think about it, the JavaScript engines are just crazy complex now, with all the stuff, with all the optimizations that they apply, and including the WebAssembly and the sims that have been added to WebAssembly now, and there's a bunch of other things. It's just crazy what this does. And yeah, it's fascinating to look at sort of the JIT engine from the reverse engineering standpoint, I guess, because it's like it literally walks you through what happens here in the assembly code that the engine outputs when the executing your JavaScript, which is just bonkers. Anyway, if you have even slightest interest in JavaScript engines, I would recommend going through this short article, looking at the code they show, and then going through all the references that they actually mention here, because most of them are really, really cool and very interesting to read. But yeah, that's basically covers it. Right, next article we got here is what is Project Fugu? More power to the web. So this is a pretty extensive write-up on the Project Fugu, which is the this was really big collaborative project between Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Intel, and a bunch of other companies that aims to extend web and turn it into something that is more advanced, I guess, without breaking it. Which is, there was the first time we heard Project, or at least the first time I've read about Project Fugu, was when people speculated it's going to be the replacement for Android, which it might as well be. So it might be an evolution of Android rather than anything. But the idea behind the Project Fugu is essentially of making the web platform good enough for building 99% of the apps, by adding features such as, like the notification badges or background sync or web share, which we already have actually, thanks to the Project Fugu. clipboard APIs, wake lock, native file system access, web NFC, and a bunch of other features. So if you are curious about how, the big guys such as Microsoft, Google, Intel, and others think about extending the web, absolutely go through this article. So they explain the way that they consider the features. So there's this multi-staged approach to that, from under consideration to started work to dev trials, origin trials, which we often see in the Google Chrome releases, to features being shipped, which again is only something you get whenever the feature is completed and added to most of the major browsers. And there's also an API tracker, which I found interesting. So this is something that I have not seen before. This is basically a list of all the Project Fugu features that are currently in development or being considered. I'm not sure why my internet is so freaking slow right now, but anyway, there is a ton of really cool things here, starting from, stuff like native file system access, as we already looked at, web NFC, I think we already talked about that as well, serial API that we also talked about, and there is the interesting bits for me, at least, was the stuff that was in dev trials and under consideration and started. There is so many cool ideas here. Like, I can definitely see some people being opposed to that in, sort of, you have to be very careful when adding stuff like this to the browsers, especially with regards to privacy concerns and tracking online and all that stuff. But as a developer, a lot of that stuff is extremely exciting to me. So, like, this is really, really cool. Anyway, if you are interested in the future of the web, and it looks like most of those things are going through and are going to land in the browsers, and essentially at some point we're just going to have like progressive web apps that do most of the things your app do these days, and then you have a very low level things that, you have to actually install, like video games or drivers maybe. I'm not even sure what beyond the video games, what else would you need to install. I have a feeling that video games will also migrate at some point to the browser, because it's getting good enough with the, the whole WebAssembly, SIMD, and multi-threading to handle most of the things. I guess obviously not going to be like Crysis level of games, but let's be honest, most of the games don't really need that much power. Look at the Among Us, like this is the best example from the recent times. It's like you can easily run that game in the browser. But anyway, I'm just getting distracted here right now. Yeah, it's a really nice write-up, really cool insight into what Project Fugu is and what kind of what things to expect from the features that we are getting and features under consideration. So if you have any interest in the future of the web, which you probably have, just have a look. It's a really good one. Hey, Jikochi, welcome to the stream. Thank you very much for your kind feedback. Right, continuing, we got an article from the React team that is titled Introducing the New JSX Transform, and this is sort of a deep dive into the upcoming changes for the JSX Transform that is going to be coming out together with React 17. And there's some, essentially the gist is that you will no longer need to import React at the top level of your React components, because the JSX will work a bit differently. So you no longer use React create elements. There's now going to be a JSX function that is going to be automatically added from React JSX runtime by the compiler. So you can just write your React components as you did, for example, in Next.js, which is, in my opinion, a lot more convenient than having to add React every time. Like, it's not super annoying to do that, but it doesn't make sense because you literally don't reference it anywhere in the code. Like, you know that, okay, the JSX actually compiles to this React create element, but it's a bit counterintuitive, especially for the people who just start out with React. Like, why do I need to include that? And this new transform actually changes that, and yeah, makes it a lot nicer. So it's they're going to be shipping that with Create React App version 4 that is going to be released soon-ish. Next.js and Gatsby also already have it basically, and yeah, it looks really cool. And if you want, you can of course use it manually using the Babel transform, which, if you have some custom build pipeline or whatever, which, yeah, looks pretty nice. So if you are curious about more technical details, do have a look at the blog post. It's not incredibly large, but it does explain it really well. That basically covers it. All right, next thing we got here is, yeah, so this is probably one of my favorite things this week is, this is the article titled How We Build a Real-Time Privacy Inspector. And we're going to talk about the privacy inspector itself a bit later in the libs and demos section. But essentially, this is a tool that allows you to have a privacy insight into any website and show you how are you being identified and tracked. Like, are there any third-party cookies, ad trackers, key logging, session recording, canvas fingerprinting. Now, this is one of the things that I did not know existed before, and I haven't even thought about applying canvases for tracking what the browser is and trying to fingerprint the user by using canvas. We're going to get to that in a second, but it's really fascinating. Yeah, stuff like, and the typical stuff that you expect, like Facebook tracking, Google Analytics, whatever. Now, the article itself talks about how exactly, what is the previous work in here, what kind of things they consider while building the tool, how does it work. Again, most of those things, if you ever read about the privacy online, you probably know about them. Now, the interesting thing is this canvas fingerprinting thing. So the thing is that a lot of websites, and it turns out a lot of websites, use off-screen canvas where they basically render a bunch of bollocks to fingerprint your current machine. So not just a browser, like you as a user, basically, right? Because depending on your browser, on your extensions, on your CPU, GPU, whatever, time and performance and essentially whatever you do with the canvas, right? The metrics you can grab from rendering a bunch of things on a canvas will differ incredibly, which makes perfect sense when you think about it, right? But I never thought about applying that as basically tracking technique, which is just bonkers. And there's like an examples of, so those canvases are off screen, so you don't actually see them as a user, but if you find them in a DOM, you can actually have a look at what they render. And I think I already seen someone releasing a t-shirts with those. So I think this is like Airbnb, and this is I don't remember which other websites was there, but someone made a t-shirts with those and being like, hey, this is actually what you get when you visit Airbnb, for them to track you, which is hilarious and terrifying at the same time. But yeah, so there's a lot more technical details in here on how exactly it works. Limitations covered as well, so it's a really good article, very well balanced. Again, if you are curious about, the whole privacy aspect of the web, absolutely read through this. There are some techniques that most of people don't even think about it. Again, the canvas thing, I never thought about applying canvas for tracking, like holy shit. It's fascinating. So yes, if you are interested in web privacy, definitely give it a read. There is a ton of very cool things in here. Hey Gregor, welcome to the stream. All right, last thing we got here for today in article section is Atomics.wait, Atomics.notify, and Atomics.waitAsync explanation article from V8 team, which touches on those low-level synchronization primitives that are basically useful for implementing mutexes and means of synchronizing things across, well, threads or WebAssembly or whatever. I honestly, before reading this article, I didn't even know those things exist. Admittedly, I'm not the guy who typically works with a lot of code that requires such a low-level synchronization primitives. Like, I typically work on a lot higher level things. But it's really cool to know that this exists, and it actually turns out that the synchronous versions, so Atomics.wait and Atomics.notify, are actually supported by most of the browsers, at least the evergreen ones. Safari as usual being, the browser that doesn't support anything new, but like Firefox and Chrome and Edge, all of them do support this. And the article essentially deep dives into the new Atomics.waitAsync, which allows you to asynchronously wait for the specific lock, which allows you not to block the thread essentially, which is can be quite handy in some cases. And then it deep dives into look into, how can you use that, how it works, and so on and so forth. So if you are curious, do check it out. Again, it's been supported by Chrome and Firefox for quite some time, and even Node.js since version 8. Safari's been lagging behind as usual, so whatever. I'm not even going to talk about Safari right now. But anyway, if you are curious to check it out, again, seems like a very handy primitives. Probably need to deep dive into them at some point. Sounds like can be useful in quite some cases. But yeah, there we go. Okay, that is it for the articles and news. Now we are coming to the tips, tricks, and bit-sized awesomeness, with the first announcement being not so awesome, unfortunately. So the Raymond Hill, who is the author and developer of uBlock Origin and uMatrix, has ended development of uMatrix and archived the repository, saying that he basically has no desire to work on it any longer, and anyone can just fork it and continue it. And he might return to development in future if he feels like it, but you know, for now he's just gonna archive it and not touch it anymore, which is honestly really sad for me. So I'm a heavy user of uMatrix. This is a plugin that I've been using for a lot, like I don't even know how many years now, like 4 years, 5 years maybe, no, not to lie. But it's a thing that I don't think I will. I'm planning to use it until it just stops working and no longer functions physically in the browser. Because I cannot imagine using the web without it, because, you know, you just go to like New York Times or whatever, right? You go to a website and the amount of crap they try to load is mind-boggling. Like when you just open this thing. So essentially what the uMatrix does, right? It splits the requests into the categories. So it says, okay, there's first party requests that come from the first party domains or subdomains of the current domain, like New York Times, right? And then there's third party requests, which is whatever else they include, like Google or tag managers or tracking tools, Facebook, whatever. And they also split it into the categories. So like cookies, CSS, images, media, scripts, XHR, iframes, and whatever else is other. Right, there's usually like some crap that is included. And it basically allows you to control the requests in a very fine-grained manner, right? So you can say, I don't know why I allowed this, because there's nothing in there. So you can just say, hey, I actually don't want to load, so I want to load the core content, but I don't want to load this tracking scripts, or I don't want to load this advertisement scripts, or I don't want to Google have any cookies here, which means that Google no longer tracks how I am using the web outside of the Google silo, which is exactly why I'm using it, right? So it's not just because the ad block, while it works very nicely and everything, and I think ad block actually does block majority of those tracking cookies, there are still some ways that would basically, some things that would go through it, like for example, off-screen canvas. I'm 90% sure that uMatrix would prevent off-screen canvas things because the script is loaded from some other domain. It uses the tracking in canvas because it's expensive and has to be basically done asynchronously. So this thing will just cut it out, right? And it's incredibly helpful. It reduces the amount of requests and crap you load on the web page significantly. Like I can just, I can just show you. So if we reload it with uMatrix enabled, it's really going to be quite big anyway, right? So we got like 4 megabytes of stuff, 9 megabytes of resources. I'm guessing there is, okay, there is 1.12, wait a second, 12 megabytes of JavaScript. That doesn't seem right. Anyway, so there's, you know, so we got what? We got 416 requests and then 12 megabytes of resources, including photos, obviously, and all the other stuff, right? This is with uMatrix enabled. So now I disable it, reload the page. We got 300. Okay, the requests, I guess, are the same, but the amount of stuff we loaded just exploded into 2.5 times, right? So instead of 4 megs, we're now loading 10, which is like, why do I need to load all that crap if I could view the same stuff without doing that? And yeah, anyway, I really like uMatrix. I know it can be annoying when you initially set it up because you have to basically go around and permit some things. Because, you know, the first time you load the website, some of them might straight up not just work because it blocks the required scripts. But in the long run, I think it makes your life a lot easier and faster on the web if you're willing to spend those extra minutes setting up the things that you permit or block, essentially. Anyway, it's very sad news that uMatrix development is stopped, at least for now. Really hoping Mr. Hill will pick it up back at some point when he maybe feels less burned out. Or maybe if not, then someone forks it and makes it, you know, a new version that is better, faster, more improved, because there is some insane work in here. Like if you just go and read the source code, it is just really, really cool stuff. Again, he's utilizing the WebAssembly, for example, very heavily for request matching, which is really cool. So yeah, there's some very fascinating tech in here. But anyway, I get distracted quite a bit. Continuing, we got announcements coming from the Ignite, the Microsoft conference. That is, Microsoft Edge is coming to Linux in October. So if you are using Linux and you wanted Chrome alternative that is not Google powered, then well, there you go. Edge is coming to Linux. Is going to be first party citizen in there, and yeah, it's like you got all the cool stuff from Edge working there, and it's going to work on most of the distros. So that's kind of cool. Hey Donna, thank you very much for your donation. Is usually highly appreciated. And yes, hello Donna, welcome to the stream. Long time no see. Right, continuing, we got, whoa, that is a wrong button. We got Node 15 release candidates. The very first one, I'm not sure if they release more or not, but Node 15 is going to be released on October 20th. At least this is the plan so far. And RC1 is already available, and you can just download it and give it a shot. And I'm not sure if there's any changelog or anything like that. You can have a look, but if you like leaving on the edge, and if you like, oh yeah, there is a changelog. There we go. It's in a subsequent tweet. If you like living on the edge, if you like very early release candidates, do check it out. You can already use Node 15, and you can try it out and see if any of your code breaks, which majority of the time it shouldn't unless you're doing some native stuff. So there you go. Right, next thing we got here is the announcement from the TC39. As I said, there was a meeting in September, and they've advanced quite a bunch of different proposals to newer stages. There's like a whole ton of them. So if you're curious, this is a very nice thread that basically summarizes all of the advanced proposals. If you are interested in that, go ahead and have a read through all of that. I'm not going to go through them. I think I already covered the .item proposal, which is stage 3 right now, which is, I think, the most interesting out of all of them. There's quite a bunch of other ones that could be interesting for your specific cases, so make sure to read through if you are curious about the whole, JavaScript world, I guess. Right, now we are coming to the releases section. We got 4 of them here, starting with the PurgeCSS 3.0, which simplifies the whitelisting options, add the block list option finally, which I think the thing is I've been missing the most from at least the way I set up builds with PurgeCSS. But yeah, PurgeCSS is incredibly helpful. So if you are building your CSS customly and you want to throw out things that you don't actually use in your code, so do check this one out. It's actually very helpful. View 3. I think I covered View 3 at some point, right? We already talked about that. But yes, View 3 is also out. Okay, continuing, we got V8 version 8.6, which adds a bunch of things, and changes a bunch of things. So there's the speed up improvements and number prototype to string. There's the wake Atomics.wait is removed and renamed to Atomics.notify. As discussed previously in that article that we talked about, the Atomics API. The Sept in WebAssembly is now supported on liftoff interpreter, so it's no longer just turbofan. You can now also use it in Sept, which is, I guess, convenient. And there's now faster WebAssembly to JavaScript calls, as well as a bunch of other changes. So if you're curious about the whole details, do read through the changelog. Next thing we got here is Firefox version 81 that basically finally adds the support for the media keys. So if you have any media keys on your keyboard or your headphones or whatever, you can finally control Firefox with that. That's quite overdue. And yeah, a bunch of other minor changes that are not exactly exciting. Again, after all the changes the Mozilla did to the product line they have, like, I'm really scared for the future of Firefox, to be honest, and yeah, we'll see how that develops. But anyway, if you're using Firefox, I guess there's a couple of nice-ish improvements to it. Okay, and the last release we got here for today is React 3 Fiber version 5 that comes with basically completely rewritten reconciler and optimizing for hot path, as well as a bunch of other things such as using WebGL2 by default and auto-attaching for geometries and materials, and so on and so forth. If you haven't heard about the React 3 Fiber, it's a React renderer for 3JS that allows you to write 3D scenes using React JSX syntax, which works really damn well, to be honest. So it's really cool. I think we should do a stream at some point, because this thing basically allows you to build AR and VR apps just by using that, which is super damn cool. So we should try that at one point in the future. But yeah, there we go. That is it for releases. Now we are coming to the libs and demos. We do have quite a few here, and some of them are pretty damn crazy. So starting with supercharge promise pool. So this is map-like concurrent promise processing for Node.js. Essentially a tiny lib that allows you to create a pool of promises from your iterable and then process it asynchronously and wait for all of them to finish. Can be handy in some cases. I mean, it's a very generic tool, so there you go. If it sounds interesting, do check it out. Next thing we got here is threadbox, recursive worker threads in Node.js. So I thought this was pretty damn cool. So essentially it allows you to create workers and essentially spawn workers recursively from other workers, which I know has a very limited use cases, but could be very, very handy. Uses decorators to do things, so you have to like those or set up pre-compilation. Seems like it's mostly built for the TypeScript. Doesn't seem like there's any API for just using it without decorators in Node.js. But if you are using TypeScript and if you do like decorators, do check it out. Seems like a pretty damn powerful library. Okay. Next thing we got here is playwright-cli. This is command line interface for common playwright actions. If you never heard about Playwright, it's the tool that is basically the puppeteer for controlling the Chrome and Edge and I believe Firefox as well at this point from the Microsoft guys. And this is a command line tool that allows you to essentially run common things just by just by executing the command line. So you can screenshot pages or execute things or render pages on specific devices by just saying the playwright-cli, whatever the viewport color scheme, open this, and it will fire up the browser and show you whatever happens in this thing. You can also have the there's also the what do you call it, the REPL thing, where you can just write it and then run the REPL commands and see what will happen. Or you can generate PDF from any website by just running a CLI, which is actually incredibly helpful. So there you go. If that sounds interesting, do check playwright-cli out. Next thing we got here is Reactrix, another form validation library for React that looks pretty nice. It's have a pretty straightforward API, so you just use a hook and yeah, and you just pass your data and then validate them to the set validator function that it returns, and you get a message if there's any errors essentially, and that's basically it. Seems straightforward. Also supports translations and everything, so looks quite nice. If you are working with forms a lot, do check it out. Maybe this is exactly what you wanted. Okay, continuing, we got react-offload-ui-thread-research. So this is more of a research repository, just as it says essentially. It tries to offload the logic in React app into the web workers or worker threads, I guess, right? And see if that's viable to reach the 120 hertz web app. Essentially, the idea is that, we are doing quite a lot of work in main threads, such as, whenever you call in the REST or GraphQL APIs or whatever, when you get the data, you don't typically just render the data, but you usually have some sort of a filtering, mapping, reducing, sorting, right? And all of that typically happens in the main thread. In most cases, it's fine, but you can speed your app quite a bit by just moving all that logic into the worker threads. The problem is that using the web worker threads or building your app that will utilize the web worker threads is quite painful, right? So you have to, from the very beginning, you have to design your app in a way that your logic will live in that separate thread, and you will have some sort of a message-driven communication style between that thread and your main API that will basically talk to it, give it commands, get the data back, which is a lot of friction to build the app like this, right? And so this sort of prototype looks into possibility of how to write a code that would still be written and behave like your typical React app, but still will execute this heavy logic in threads. which I think is really interesting. Like, I don't know if, like, I would be curious to see how the whole tech develops, and at the point when we reach 120 hertz, will we really need to offload everything into the worker threads, or will our computers be basically fast enough to just handle everything in the main thread? Because this might as well be the case, right? Like 120 hertz is, yes, it is indeed coming and it's getting more widespread, but by the time it's here, which probably will take a few more years, the CPUs might be fast enough to just handle everything we do right now on the main thread. So anyway, it's a very interesting project nonetheless. So if you're curious about the whole worker threads and offloading the workloads to them, do check it out. It's pretty damn cool. Continuing, we got Cobweb. Oh yes, this one's crazy. So this is a Cloudflare project, and they built a COBOL to WebAssembly compiler. As someone joked on Twitter, the WebAssembly is now enterprise ready. I honestly have no idea who still uses COBOL. I'm pretty sure it's still used widely, right? I know that there's like a lot of enterprise systems, especially the legacy ones, use COBOL quite heavily. But yeah, now you can take your COBOL code and just compile it to WebAssembly and ship it to web. I never worked with COBOL, I'll be honest with you. I have no idea why would you need that, but that now exists, and you can compile your COBOL code into WebAssembly. Yeah, that's the thing now. So I don't really have anything else to say here. Anyway, continuing, we got shoulders. This is also one of my favorite things this week. So this is a tiny command line tool that allows you to quickly view a list of your dependencies open issues. So sort of, you know, the pun on the standing on shoulders of giants from the quote from Isaac Newton. The idea that, you know, if you're working on a project that uses a lot of open source libraries and you want to give back, you can just run npx shoulders and it will show you open issues for all of your libraries, and you can just go and contribute to them, which is, in my opinion, absolutely awesome. So this is a really, really cool tool. Considering we have Oktoberfest 2020 coming in soon, so if you want to, you know, contribute meaningfully to the project that you actually use, this is a really nice tool. So if you're curious, do check shoulders out. Okay, continuing, we got Aegis.net, a lightweight Express, Koa, and HTTP middleware for efficient API monitoring. Essentially what it does is just collects the statistics on your API, basically taps as a middleware into all your requests and collects the daily requests per hour, response time, and stuff like this. So you can basically get an aggregate statistics on how many requests were served, what is the frequency, what is the responses, blah, 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 whatever. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, Redis backed, but you know, if you want to monitor your API statistics, that seems like a handy little tool. Okay, continuing, we got Blacklight. So this is that privacy tool that I was talking about when we read through that really long privacy article. Essentially allows you to enter any website and get the report on privacy statistics, Airbnb, what was it, Airbnb.com, I think, right? So we can try and throw in Airbnb over here, scans the website and gives you the results on what the website actually does. Why is it taking so long? Is it my internet again slow? Is that their website is just under heavy load? The first day I tried to use it, it was really, really snappy. There we go. Okay, so as you can see here, Airbnb includes 6 ad trackers, and it actually tells you which ad trackers are there, including Facebook, Verizon Media, and so on and so forth. There is 4 third-party cookies from Microsoft, Verizon, Alphabet, and a bunch of others. There is, so there's this off-screen canvas that we were talking about. So it actually shows you the canvas itself, which is really damn cool. And yeah, it's really fascinating. It also apparently logs your keystrokes. So if you are on Airbnb, do not print out passwords for your other websites, or it actually might log them somewhere. It also includes the Facebook and Google tracking. So there you go. It's a really cool one, and it does a lot, basically explains a lot about what exactly the trackers are and how they work, instead of just saying that, hey, they're this trackers and this is what they do, right? Again, all of that is backed by their methodology. So that article that we discussed before outlines what exactly they are gathering and how exactly they work. So this is really cool one. Do check it out if you are curious. Right, continuing, we got Headless UI, also a really cool project. So this is from Tailwind Labs, folks, and it's Headless UI. So the headless in this case means that it's essentially unstyled UI, accessible UI components that are designed to integrate with Tailwind CSS and are designed for you to style yourself, which is the idea I absolutely love. So there's a React and Vue components right now. There's just a couple of them, transition and menu button. But the idea is that you have this drop-down menu, right, which is super easy to build in React. And then the gist is that you would style it yourself with, for example, Tailwind, right? It doesn't have to be Tailwind. So it's like, the idea is that you can style it with anything. But I really love this approach. So like I'm not sure I dig the whole headless UI terminology because it's a bit confusing. It's like headless UI without context doesn't make a lot of sense to me, at least, but I do like the idea behind the project. So if that sounds interesting, do check it out. Hey, Johnny Mnemonic, welcome to the stream. That is like, oh man, this a really cool username, by the way. Hey, Marina, welcome to the stream. All right, continuing, we got fflate, high performance compression and decompression, and 8 kilobyte package. So this is some black magic over here. This is compression decompression library that allows you to gzip or zlib your text or whatever you want, basically, right? In 8 kilobytes. It is insane, and it is up to 40% faster than existing libraries such as Paco, TinyInflate, and uzip.js. And it's also thread and worker safe, which is freaking amazing. So if you need to pack or unpack anything in the browser, then do check this out. This looks absolutely bonkers, and all in 8 kilobytes. It's your actual name. No, wait. I do not trust you, but you know what? If this is really your name, this is really awesome. Like, I would... That would be really cool if I was called Johnny. I'm not even sure if that would be cool or not, or is just terrible. But you know what? Let's just stop it cool. Anyway, continuing, we got headless-recorder. So we already had it at some point on the podcast. Back then it was called Puppeteer Recorder, and now it is it's renamed into headless-recorder, and it actually supports Puppeteer and let me try that again. Puppeteer and Playwright right now, so you can actually use it with just about any browser. And it's the same plugin that basically allows you to just do stuff in browser, and it will record what you did and generate a Playwright or Puppeteer script that you can then use for testing or automation or whatever. It's at version 0.8 now, and even backed by some sponsor, which is super cool, I think. So if you are doing automation or maybe some testing, do check this one out. It's actually a really, really nice tool. Okay, continuing, we got ffmpeg.wasm. So this is ffmpeg compiled to WebAssembly for browser and Node.js, which you can just include and use. It does not support all ffmpeg features, so there's a limited subset, but it's still a really nice thing. So it basically supports MP4, WebM, MP3 formats, and allows you to just convert stuff from one thing to another right in mem in Node.js or in browser, which looks really, really cool. And there's also a series of tutorials. I think I covered some of them, at least on this podcast. We basically talked about compiling the ffmpeg into WebAssembly, which is exactly what this is, basically. So if that sounds interesting, do check it out. I wanted to ask if you have any intentions going into DevOps world. Well, I mean, I work with DevOps quite a bit, pretty much daily, because, you know, we're a tiny startup, so I have to do pretty much everything. But I don't know if I feel comfortable enough, like, teaching about it yet. I mean, Nginx API gateways, proxy caching, all that kind of stuff is relatively straightforward and not exactly DevOps, right? So I did I did a significant deep dive into how traffic and exoframe works on one of my videos at least. But yeah, again, if you have any topics you want me to see covered, just reach out in Discord or Twitter or whatever and let me know what you're interested in. I will be more than happy to do a video on some point. We also have the proposals repo, so just open it there. I am trying to get back to doing those, so you know, I do not like. If there's something specific you want me to cover, just reach out and I'll see what I can do. Anyway, continuing, we got CSS Tokenizer. This is essentially, yeah, a tool that allows you to tokenize CSS according to CSS syntax specification. So it's kind of like the, man, what do you call it? What's the JavaScript tokenizer thing? I forgot the name of it. Oh my god. JS parse to tokens. What is the... No, wait a second. Apparently I cannot type tokens. What is the name of the JavaScript parser? JavaScript parser. Oh my god. Acorn, right. This is what. Acorn and Prisma. Those are the two, right. Okay, I forgot the name of them. Yes, so it's basically a CSS parser, right? So you basically parse the CSS into tokens, and then from tokens you can reconstruct the resulting CSS file, which can be helpful for quite a few things. So there you go. My jobs, I'm forced going into these topics, no DevOps. JVT. I mean, again, as I said, you know, I'm also kind of forced to do DevOps and infrastructure management and all that kind of stuff. It's fine. I think, you know, if you are using the right tools, it can be quite enjoyable. There are some painful moments in there, but the modern DevOps is actually very nice. We are using JSON Web Tokens quite a bit. I think I did more than one video on JSON Web Tokens, actually, so that was covered quite a bit. Hey Dragon, welcome to the stream. Anyway, continue. We got reactive view. This is re-implemented Vue 3 composition API in React. I honestly don't know why would you need that when you got React hooks, which basically do the same, more or less, right? But if for some reason you liked the Vue composition API better than React, then do check this library out. It basically does exactly the same, but for React components. Again, I have no idea why, but that thing exists. Okay, continuing, we got Jotai. This is essentially the recoil from Facebook, right? So that very fancy and complex state management library that they released that is actually very nice to use and very powerful. But this one is a lot simpler and smaller. So this is basically minimalistic API. It doesn't have any string keys, TypeScript oriented, and has a lot less features as far as I understood. It basically just has atoms and no selectors, which, you know, still works relatively well for the simple cases. And yeah, looks very nice, very small-ish. So if you are looking for a simpler and smaller alternative for recoil, do check this one out. It's actually pretty damn good. Right, and final thing we got here is not loading. God damn it! Come on now. Yeah, so the last demo I wanted to show was probably one of the coolest ones this week. It's called modify.video, and for whatever reason it seems to be down. I guess people just killed it. Anyway, someone built a completely... I will just explain it to you and you will have to trust me that it actually worked first time when I opened it. So somebody built a fully in-browser video editor that basically utilizes WebAssembly, if I remember correctly, and allows you to just take any video on your PC and edit it and export the cut, trim version, whatever. And it, you know, without any server side, basically, which is a really cool one. I'm not sure why it died. I guess people just overloaded, but yeah, I hopefully it's going to be back because I already committed it to the repo. I'm just hoping it's going to work. Hey, me, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I saw it on Twitter. I think the last time I saw it on Twitter was like yesterday evening or something, and it worked perfectly fine. Like I played around with it. Looked really cool, but for whatever reason is dead. Anyway, hopefully he's gonna be back online in some time. Okay, last thing we got here for today is in the interesting department. I already mentioned it before, but there we go. Oktoberfest 2020. Registrations are now open. You can start hacking. Okay, for now, you cannot start hacking. You can only log in with your GitHub account, and basically it will tell, hey, you know, here's your profile. You have this many pull requests. Obviously, the pull requests only will count starting from the 1st October and going to 31st. So if you are interested in participating, make sure to register and prepare. Again, you know, there's like a bunch of materials here as usual, helping you to figure out what to do. Again, Oktoberfest can be very fun. Would recommend participating. Try to support your favorite projects, the project you use daily. It's really cool. And you get a nice t-shirt. Like this year's t-shirt probably going to feature this logo, which looks very pinky and very nice looking. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Not yet sure which repos I will be participating in, so we'll see. So Dragon, there is no limit on projects. Essentially, the gist is that you have to do 4 pull requests, and that's it. It doesn't matter which projects. You can contribute to any projects. Typically, the projects have marked so on GitHub you can search by labels, and you can just search for Oktoberfest label, and it usually just label Oktoberfest. I think this is what you can. I think you can just, yeah, there you go. You can just search all GitHub for label Oktoberfest. You will get like a ton of issues that are really good for people who just getting started. And those range from contributing to code. I think the previous, yeah, this looks better. So basically it ranges from contributing to code and to, you know, contributing to documentation, writing tutorials, fixing bugs, adding unit tests, and basically all range of skills. Do not be afraid to contribute. It's really cool. Gotta go. We'll watch the recording later. Well, I mean, we're almost finished. So, you know, again, if you have any questions about DevOps, if you want me to cover something specific, just reach out to me and poke me, and I will help as much as I can, essentially. Yes, Oktoberfest is incredibly cool, incredibly helpful. The maintainers are usually very, very helpful because, again, you know, it's cool. I probably should tag some of my issues as Oktoberfest and Good First issue as well, because there's quite a few of them that could be very nice in a few repos. But there we go. Anyway, this is actually it from my side. So if you guys have any questions or suggestions, now is the time to throw them into the chat. If not, as usual, you can find all the links mentioned on the GitHub. You can join our Discord server and talk to me or any of the people, super awesome people in the chat about JavaScript or video games. And I guess that's pretty much covers it. Let me have a look at the chat. Hey, uMatrix, welcome to the stream. Cannot send message over YouTube. Oh yes, YouTube is not very good with links for whatever reason. BxJS shows the latest episodes. It might be caching. So it works fine for me. Try to force refresh your browser, because since this website is static, I might screw up my headers for it and it might not refresh correctly. So I need to look into that. I think it's just basically caching, and it seems to have all the episodes for me. So just try force refreshing. Yeah, okay, so it's my fault and I should tweak the cache. Let me just open an issue for that. Building Extra.js. I do remember stumbling upon that one time, so that is definitely better caching headers in production 1. Currently caching might prevent. Let me just create this ticket and I will address all your questions in the chat, guys. Might prevent browser from fetching latest episode on home page. We should expire pages after, I guess, 5 days or something would be fine. There you go. Okay, let me have a look here. Do you do stream on Kubernetes? I did not do a stream on Kubernetes. I don't actually have that much experience with Kubernetes. Like, I played with the Minikube locally, but that's about all I did with it. I honestly have not yet seen a single use case where I would need a Kubernetes to do anything. Like, I think the Kubernetes is reasonable when you have an incredibly large infrastructure or you have to scale to like crazy sizes like Google or Microsoft does. But if you are a tiny startup or whatever, it's just gonna be cumbersome basically. So yeah, I don't have, I haven't been at the point where I need to dive into Kubernetes yet, basically. So I cannot really teach you anything about it because I don't know anything about it. That basically sums it up. Give some love to Vue, so few things, only React. Well, yes, I do prefer React over Vue. Vue 3 with Composition API looks a lot nicer. I'll be honest with that, but I typically tend to pick up Vue only where I want to do something very small and quick, and I don't want to set up the whole building pipeline. Even then, with Next.js, that became less of a problem because I can just do npm install next React and just go for it, right? So I'm definitely a React head. Label it as a Oktoberfest. I'm not honestly sure that this can be done by anyone but me. Here's a question. I don't even remember how I served my website. So I remember that I deployed it with Exoframe, right? And what was it? So we got the Docker file here. And we are serving it. So it's Gatsby latest. It's a Gatsby Docker image. Okay, let's debug it real quick. Here's the question. Can we do it with Gatsby Docker? There we go. I thought they had headers. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So there's the cool. So it actually can be done. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Labels, good first issue, and edit labels. Let us add a label Hacktoberfest. Right, and we want is there there's gotta be a official color for that, right? It's gotta be some official color for this. What is the official I mean, yeah, this looks close enough. Let's just steal this color. No, that was not what I wanted. Show me your can I see your what color are you using? No, that's evil. That's just evil. I cannot. There we go. That looks good. Perfect. So this actually, where is it? Where did it? Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah. So if anyone wants to do a pull request, then be my guest. So that would be really cool. It's basically you just need some. You just need to pass set an environment variable here in the Docker file that we use, and that should basically fix it. Because the default expiration is 1 year, so you're not force reload your browser, you will never get a new episode, which is a bit silly. But yeah, so we just need to. But it did cache ignore HTML, so it's a bit weird. I guess maybe this needs some more debugging, but anyway. So that should be doable basically. Also might be a good idea to update dependencies here because they are apparently out of date. I haven't touched this repo in 6 months. Okay, so we did touch it some time ago, but maybe we need to do some maintenance stream and just give some love to BxJS tooling because it's been quite a while since I've updated any of that. Anyway, any more questions, suggestions, or things you guys want to discuss or share? If not, we can just wrap it up here and I can go continue playing Path of Exile or something. There's been a new league and it's been quite weird, to be honest, but I'm still enjoying it. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes. As usual, if you missed any of the streams, you can rewatch the VOD immediately on Twitch or on YouTube. You can also listen to the podcasts in audio form on iTunes, Spotify, whatever the hell you prefer. You can follow me on Twitter for retweets of usual things and some shit posting with regards to JavaScript and video games. And that basically covers it. Doesn't seem like we have any more questions or suggestions, so thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you for your continued support, for all of your kind words and all your cool links that you share with me. Again, join our Discord server and chat with us there. We are going to be wrapping this stream up. Hey, Shinesem, welcome to the stream. You are a bit late. We are already wrapping things up, so welcome. And yes, I guess if you want to chat, just join the Discord and we'll continue this there. So again, all the links can be found on github.com, BxJS Weekly. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you on Wednesday for Web Component stream. Hopefully I will no longer be sick. I'm honestly tired of being sick, and I just want to do a Web Component stream. Gonna do that. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your donations and everything. Yes, I do stream React.js predominantly. But yeah. Hey Nitan, welcome to the stream. And again, we are wrapping it up. I should do an AMA stream and just chill for some time at some point. So there we go. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. And I see you on Wednesday for development stream. Maybe we'll do some chill stream with games and chatting tomorrow and just, just sit around and chat, and I'll just play some Path of Exile while you people think about the questions. That sounds like good fun. So have an awesome rest of the weekend or rest of the week if you're watching the video of this, and I see you next time.